Is it going to be the position of the RNC in 2024 that the 2020 election was not fairly decided or that it was stolen somehow?
Well, I think we're past that. I think that's in the past. We learned a lot. Certainly, we took a lot of notes. Right now, we have 23 states that have 78 lawsuits in these states to ensure that it is harder to cheat and easier to vote.
Okay, so Lara Trump, now head of the RNC for some reason, having nothing to do with whose family she's a part of, says that they're past the big lie. It's in the past. But is it in the past? Because you went directly from saying it's in the past to saying we're still lodging dozens of BS lawsuits all over the country over our conspiracy theories. So it seems like it's still kind of out there. At least the spirit of it is still out there. And beyond even just that, they're still directly claiming that the election was stolen in 2020. I mean, like Donald Trump, the candidate himself. Last weekend, he said that because Laken Riley had been murdered by a migrant that he says wouldn't be in the country if the election wasn't rigged, that you can blame it, I guess, on Joe Biden. So that was last weekend that he claimed the election was rigged, that it was stolen from him. So I guess if it's in the past, it's the recent past, I suppose. Before we continue with the story, we depend on members to keep on going. Don't wait, click join now on YouTube. Just a couple of weeks ago, he bleated this, talking about Mark Thiessen, the Rhino Bush apologist, and he says the election was rigged. The capital E election was all caps rigged. That was just a couple weeks ago. Does Lara Trump not follow him on True Social? That could put her in some trouble. But anyway, like throughout, like it's all over the place. He's at campaign rallies claiming not just that the election was stolen in 2020, he's already pre-claiming that the next one will be stolen. You can see in this headline. At all of his rallies, he tells them that the election will be stolen. And some Republicans, maybe like Lara Trump, who are trying to be a little bit more responsible and help him to win the election, are like, when you claim that the election is rigged, it makes people not go out and vote. So could you please stop doing that? And so maybe she just means that she's moved on from that. Because I want to remind you that she was one of those advancing the big lie. Days after the election, she posted on social media casting doubt on Dominion voting machines. A month later, in advance of January 6th, she posted again calling doubt or casting doubt on the election results in Michigan. And so maybe she's just not talking about it. But whether she's talking about it or not, it seems to be following in her wake because she's at the head of the RNC right now. And it sure seems to be important for people trying to get jobs at the RNC. As you can see in this article, those being interviewed for jobs at the new Lara Trump headed RNC are being asked open-ended questions about the nature of the 2020 election. Specifically, one employee said they were asked, was the 2020 election stolen? And they say it's open-ended. So theoretically, you could answer any way you want. But quote, if you say the election wasn't stolen, do you really think you're gonna get hired? And no, I don't think that you will. So what Lara Trump is doing there might seem responsible at first glance, but that's all it's good for. And that's really all it's designed to be good for. They wanted a moment in social media where they can claim to be responsible political actors. Meanwhile, in all of their rallies, their private engagements, and even in their hiring practices, they're still advancing the same anti-democratic lies that they have been for 4 years. Sharon, what do you think?
Well, I have a headache. That's what I think. And it makes her job so difficult. I mean, you have to, I guess, cover her, Trump's daughter-in-law who now has taken over the RNC and gonna clean it up, clean it dry, whatever, drain it, okay? But if we're just going to tell more lies, and I didn't see the interview, so it's unfair to say I want more pushback, but I want more pushback. I want exactly what you just did. I want her old tweets presented to her, and I want to keep asking her the same question until people try to run me out of there and say, you're badgering her, okay? That's what I need. Otherwise, it's no fun. It's just no fun. I have a headache.
Yeah, look, I wish that he had the tweets ready to go. If you're gonna ask a question like that, you gotta be ready for what their answer is. Like, and journalists seem, I don't know, they almost seem like they don't want to learn that lesson, or they don't want to like accept that that's a lesson you could learn, that you could be ready for these sorts of things. And in particular, like I understand she doesn't do a lot of interviews, so we don't necessarily know how she's gonna answer questions like we do with Trump. But when you ask Trump a question, you could script out easily what he's gonna say because he always says the same thing. So not being ready for it should be completely unacceptable. But we know that he's been claiming that the election has been stolen, and we know that he's going to do that again. in that, because you said you didn't see the interview, in that interview, they talk about, as I said, some of the ways that she's trying to be, I guess, more responsible. So they've previously demonized things like ballot harvesting or early voting or mail-in voting, even though Republicans have done it for decades. All of a sudden it was a thing you weren't supposed to do because Trump for some reason didn't like it. Well, she announced that now that's a thing that they're gonna be encouraging. They're gonna be trying to get people to do that. Well, good luck, because Trump is going to demonize those practices for a very good reason. It is not that he genuinely thinks that those techniques are like they open the door to fraud or they're inherently unethical or something like that. He is terrified that he is going to lose. And when and if he loses, he wants his audience to never for a second stop to think if maybe he just got beat. If he wasn't good enough, if he wasn't persuasive enough, if people hated his guts too much, they want them to immediately transition over to, oh yeah, he said they were gonna rob us through mail-in voting and early voting, and hey, what do you know? It looks like they did it. That's why he did it in 2020, and that's what he's gonna do again. So good luck to Lara Trump. She's trying to head up a more responsible RNC, but unfortunately, the candidate is still Donald Trump, and the dude can't learn. Any other thoughts?
No, I think you're exactly right. I'll say this though about journalists: it's uncomfortable, and I don't want to even disparage, that one. Because I think it's uncomfortable to sit before some. I don't have a problem with it. Saying, well, that's a lie, strapping them up and zap them or something. I think that would be beautiful. But I also think certain news organizations don't get it. And they want to still try to, Ronna McDaniel, okay? They want to please another viewer who is in love with the lie, who doesn't want the truth. And you can't have it both ways. You have to just go in, tell the truth, and not really worry about who you offend. They're not gonna like you anyway. That's just what I think. It's uncomfortable. It's not that they're not ready. How could they not be ready for that? Come on.
Yeah, look, I guess I have to sort of, like you said, sort of speak out in defense of them. One, they barrage you with so many lies, particularly Donald Trump, with so many lies that if you get into, I'm going to fact check all these, it's impossible. You literally can't do it, especially because he won't actually respond to what you said. So I understand that that's difficult. I get it. Also, these people are far more brazen liars than anything these people have encountered over the past few decades. That's definitely true. And also, we have to bear in mind that it's easy to just look at the person being interviewed and the interviewer, but we have to understand the context is who is going to be watching this. And the standards, amongst those viewing it, are really out of whack. People don't care if the person they like on TV is making a good case. They care that they like the person on TV. Carrie Lake or whatever, we're gonna talk about her in a moment, could just openly lie. Lara Trump can just openly lie. And if it's a lie that makes them feel good, it doesn't matter if they provide evidence. It doesn't matter if it gets immediately fact checked. They like that it's said. Because statements of fact, or even things that are masquerading as statements of fact, are not evaluated based on how they comport with reality. They're evaluated based on how warm they make my tummy feel. And that is unfortunately how way too many Americans, including full-grown adults, approach the news and the media.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.